Hi, Sean.
How you doing, Sandy?
I'm doing great. Okay, our next guest on Point's next guest is the principal of Newport Harbor High School. This is his second year as principal. On Point is really happy to welcome Sean Boulton. So today, the topic is International Baccalaureate. So tell us how it started.
Before I do that, Sandy, I just want to tell everybody that I used to teach with you at Ensign Intermediate School, and it was some great years at Ensign teaching English over there, and there were some good times and good colleagues, and you're one of them. So thank you for having me on today.
Thank you. We're not going to talk about what really happened over there, are we?
No, it's great to reconnect.
Yes, it is.
And so, International Baccalaureate. So the International Baccalaureate's been around since 1968. Currently, it's in 146 countries, and there's approximately 3,900 schools that are IB authorized schools, everywhere from America to England to South America to Asia. And it evolved because there were a lot of people going overseas as the jet age evolved to live and to work. And so whether it was Brazil or China or India or South Africa, you had expatriates from England, from America, who wanted an education for their children that was rooted and founded in the Western theories of education, if you will. And so that's how it evolved, and it was based in Geneva, Switzerland.
Okay, so do you have anything to add to that? About what you've... Okay, never mind.
No, and it grew from there.
Okay, so what was the original purpose all those years ago?
The original purpose was to give a consistent, aligned curriculum to children living across the globe. There really wasn't. I mean, if you lived in Sri Lanka, you had to go to a local school if you were an expatriate, and that can be a very difficult thing to do because of language barriers, maybe some cultural barriers. But we're talking about, a time in our history where people started leaving their home countries in droves, and so you had hundreds of thousands of people living all across the world, and so they wanted a consistent curriculum that was aligned, that was also authorized and acknowledged by many of the top universities and colleges around the world, whether, again, it was in Germany, England, or America. And so these colleges and universities wouldn't necessarily take somebody from a local school from a place that they didn't quite understand the curriculum. Was the rigor there? Was the foundation there, whether it was math or science or English? And it really was a guessing game. And this was something to eliminate that guessing game, and eventually it became an authorized curriculum, a acknowledged curriculum that that educators and parents actually formed back then, that went global. And so a child in Brazil was taking the same exam as a child in Hong Kong at an international baccalaureate school.
So how was I always, get lost in trying to figure out how specifically things happen. So how was the curriculum developed? I mean, who developed it?
Educators did. And so educators
So they gathered together and they developed it. I mean, like Sri Lanka and all those, and Brazil and blah, 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 blah. They all got together and they developed this curriculum?
Yeah, so in the beginnings you had an International Baccalaureate based in Geneva. And so they would take reoccurring themes that were woven within Western curriculums throughout the world, whether it was England or America, and they started developing it. Well, over time, like everything in education, it evolves. And it evolves through input of educators, and that's how the IB curriculum evolved. And so the foundation was already there from drawing from these multiple countries and multiple curriculums. But in the end, it evolved and it was shaped and reshaped by educators who had their input, and they would go to conferences all around the world and start developing the curriculum. And it's kind of evolved into a multinational consortium, if you will, of educators that are connected through IB.
So educators really run it, you're saying?
Educators run it.
Educators like administrators, or educators like like college educators or
everything
professors?
From counselors to teachers to administrators.
How would a person get involved? And not a student, but a person get involved in developing and exploring the curriculum.
Well, there's the IB North America Conference, which is one of the biggest conferences that IB puts on. And IB is set up into 5 different regions. You have Africa, Asia, Australia, or America, Europe. And so within these regions, they have their yearly or annual, like a shareholders meeting that public companies have. And ours is in the North America Conference, and this year it's in Chicago in July of 2015. And that's your opportunity to go there and meet the heads of IB and start discussing and dissecting within these breakout sessions some of the elements of it. So, for example, one issue that America has had in introducing and implementing the IB curriculum is that IB was developed without associated student body in mind, or the student athlete in mind, or traditional bell schedules or traditional calendars like we have here in America. And so it had to be tweaked in order to fit within our system. And it was through these conferences where information was shared, networking happened, and people were able to start communicating about some of the dynamics of IB and how it could work within an American curriculum. Now, there's still issues that are continually revisited and evolved due to this communication, this cycle of communication that's within IB. But that's what's so refreshing about it, is it's very organic, and educators network. The flow of information goes up to the IB offices in New York, and the IB Americas is based in New York. And then information comes back down, and within these sessions that you see at the various conferences, they're targeted towards specific issues that we face as educators in America.
So I didn't realize that they were based in New York, but who specifically, I mean, there has to be like a CEO or something.
Yes, there is. There's the head of IB America, the head of IB Europe, the head of IB Africa, the head of IB Asia Pacific.
Okay, some other random question. So how's the curriculum different from like Sri Lanka? Because you brought up Sri Lanka, now I just keep thinking that name. Between that country or Brazil or any of the United States or America, how would that be different?
It's globally consistent. So all the criteria, the framework is the same. And so, when you have a local school system operating outside of the scope of the international environment or arena, there isn't that consistency. And so with IB, there's a consistency because there's this interconnection with educators and learners throughout the world because of the IB network.
Okay, how many countries are involved actually? Yeah, you showed me a list.
146.
It's amazing. So, do you have any idea how many students are involved in this? Total?
No.
Okay.
No.
I know that you're interested in implementing this in the flagship. So can you kind of explain how that would work? I mean, how do you work a first grader? Second. I mean, how does that work?
It would take time, and the great thing is that we have last year the principals within our zone, the elementary schools in Ensign and Newport Harbor. There's a K-12 IB zone in Desert Springs Unified School District. So there's a K-6 primary year program, there's a 7-10 middle years program, and then the diploma program is 11th and 12th grade. So K-12, within this zone, within Desert Sands Unified School District, they have every student in International Baccalaureate from kindergarten to 10th grade. Now, in high school with the diploma program, they have choices. They can go into the AP program, they can go into regular college prep program, or they can go the vocational route. But at least from kindergarten to 10th grade, they've all been exposed, and they've all been introduced, and they've all been taught with the IB philosophy and framework in mind.
What is the IB philosophy?
Inquiry, original thought, critical thought.
So, okay, can you give me an example of it? Like a first grader, let's say, is being introduced to that. Do you have to answer that?
No.
Okay. A first grader that's being introduced to this. How would that be? Inquiry, right? So they're asked questions or they're asked to discuss certain things, and then they, like, why do grasshoppers have those weird feet? I mean, how does that go? Do you know?
Well, with the primary year program, there's the introduction of teaching subjects with that global mindedness woven throughout every single subject. So, for example, the K-8 charter school, public charter school that we went to go visit in San Diego, the language of choice was German. So you would go in and watch a math lesson taught in German. So it's, through language, a student is introduced to not only a foreign language, but a foreign culture. And that's how that inquiry of the global mindedness is kind of fostered through that. And it's rooted within the international frame and sequence of how people see themselves in the world. Mm-hmm. So you're not just studying different countries or different languages or different aspects of our global community, but you're actually living it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm not sure that I understand all that. I mean, take me back to first grade. So I'm a first grader now, so I'm looking at you going, what the heck? Right, so what happens?
What the heck?
You're not going to speak German.
No, I'm not going to speak German. Well, it's so, and I'm not that familiar with PYP,
okay.
But I will say that, the school that we visited, you see a lot of examples of different countries, of different lesson designs with
okay.
different cultures in mind.
I mean, I kind of get it. We're going to have to take a break. Be right back.